is software, obviously in the traditional sense, is software dead?
I have the opposite take. The value of software is shifting. There's a complete platform shift is happening. A lot more developers will be empowered to build software.
Samar, so great to have you here. Congrats on the fundraising announcement.
I'm excited to be here.
To start, love to just hear from your view, what is Temporal?
We are an open source platform which ensures durable execution of your code. What that means is you write a function, and during the execution of a function, if a failure happens, we remember all of the state. And then we kind of seamlessly or transparently resurrect that function on a different host along with that state and continue executing where you left off without you as a developer kind of worrying about all of the underlying details.
And I would love to go one layer deeper because I was a CS minor in college and, consider myself technical. If I can do the queries, I can do the databases, I can do the retries myself. What else am I missing?
First of all, guaranteeing uniqueness is, how do you guarantee in a system which is running at very large scale? How do you guarantee there is only one execution of that order tied to a business transaction? For example, it becomes even more critical when you are making money movement. Is how do you guarantee a transaction is processed consistently exactly once and all of the steps in the transaction executes the way they were intended to execute?
The company was started before AI. Could you maybe just talk about kind of your journey, going to sort of this AI wave and what do you see when developers are building agents?
Both me and my co-founder Max, we were big believers that even in back in 2009, 2010, when we were working on simple workflow at AWS, that software engineering is broken. Majority of the engineering is not implementing your business logic. Almost 80-90% of your engineering is things like retries,
Yeah.
things like state management, things like guaranteeing completeness. Developers started kind of spending most of their time is not innovating. So that was the journey that we started on, is how can we democratize distributed systems? If we felt durable execution was really, really necessary for pre-AI world, I think that problem is about to go on steroids with the whole agentic world. The value is going to be how do you provide an operating system, a platform
Exactly.
to put these applications in production with all of the right guardrails.
Yeah. I actually took the liberty of building a temporal app. So wanted to definitely show it to you. And this is what I actually vibe coded. It's a deep research app for finding a perfect restaurant for any occasion. This is powered by Temporal. So let's say, you and I were going to celebrate this occasion, Samar and Casper going for a closing dinner in SF. And Samar, so what it's doing is it's kicking off multiple workers at the same time, right? Specifically here, there's 6 agents or 6 workers essentially launching at the same time on the background. One of the things that I thought was interesting to build into is I do want human approval to be required as part of this stream because a lot of agentic apps, right? If you need human input midstream, right? Like before Temporal, I have to kind of cobble all these things together myself. Now with Temporal, it's just one click. So now this is running in the background, researching manual pricing, researching a bunch of other things. And now we get the result. Well, Bennu, which is a top Michelin star restaurant, is the recommendation for this app. And I thought it's pretty cool to kind of demo this and actually see Temporal in action here. Obviously, Temporal has a pretty cool workflow design from a UI perspective as well.
So by the way, this is a value that we see as people build their agents using Temporal. One of the side effects of that is they get all sorts of visibility. These agents are completely non-deterministic. And now suddenly, because Temporal underneath the cover is built on event sourcing as a technique for state management, we can lean into that and provide all sorts of visibility or observability into how your agent is making certain decisions, what are the kind of things or activities or tools it's executing, and how it's making progress or not. So that is actually a pretty big value people drive when they start building their agentic loops using Temporal as a workflow engine.
If you talk to 10 AI agent startups, how much of the issue is actually on the orchestration, scaffolding side of things versus the model quality side?
Models are getting smarter and
Mm.
smarter, but at the same time, we do see a lot of need for retrying calls for models
Yeah.
or availability issues. Models are great at telling you what to do.
Hmm.
Who's the execution authority? Who gets that thing done? This is where temporal comes in and becomes the execution authority on getting that thing done. And we see that requirement pretty consistently across a lot of AI native companies who are building those agents. And as these agents are getting more and more asynchronous and more long lived.
And that's always, I would say, a gray area to some extent, right? Is where does the model and when does the model decide versus where does orchestration actually live? Where would you draw that delineation between model and all this backend software that we build here on Temporal?
Actually, it's been a pretty exciting year for
Yeah.
Temporal when it look about the customer base. When you talk about AI, it's a very broad spectrum of use cases there. For example, one of the largest labs like OpenAI is a big customer for Temporal. They are leveraging us for many use cases. For example, one of the use cases they recently shipped is Codex,
Hmm.
and which is every time a user comes in and starts a Codex flow, the whole management of that session is Temporal is the engine which guarantees the completion of the Codex flow there essentially. Sora or their image generation is actually another very good example of Temporal is the orchestrator for orchestrating image generation across the pipeline. If you go a little bit below the stack is Raplet. They use us for many use cases. One of the popular one is the whole session. Every time a user comes in and starts building a new agent, it kicks off a temporal workflow to guarantee uniqueness, to make sure there is only one agent
Mm.
session running per user, essentially.
I think it's pretty topical to talk about OpenClaw and ClawBot and Maltbook and all this agent to agent phenomenon, right? For those of folks who don't know, it's basically Maltbook is a bunch of bots went wild and built their own kind of forum, right? Essentially their own version of Reddit. When you think about multi agents in an enterprise context or in a consumer context, what do you see as the next frontier of those multi agent systems?
By the way, that's the future all of us are headed into, whether we like it or not. And at least the way I describe it is if you look at it 2 years ago, the place where we were is we have these LLMs, which human is prompting and getting responses to basically get value. Now we are in the next phase where let's prompt an LLM with a context and give it a set of tools essentially to why can't we orchestrate across those set of tools and get those tasks done. What's happening is the human interaction where it was literally every prompt had a human interaction. Now there are prompts which runs for much longer period of
That's
time.
right. Yeah.
Now these agents are more autonomous for longer and longer period of time. Models are going to get even smarter. Eventually the real unlock for this agentic wave is when things become distributed, where this whole swarm of agents working together to solve complex problems. And I think that's the world we are moving towards. And any organization who's adopting agents today, although yeah, having a sandbox and all of those things is a necessity, but they should be planning for that future essentially.
Yeah. Can you give us maybe a preview on what's the biggest bottleneck as you think about, not only temporal, but just a broader, infrastructure layer?
I think even protocols like MCP seems to be coming around. When MCP was created, it was very synchronous. You have a model and a prompt and a set of tools, and can you decompose that into steps and invoke those tools in a very synchronous fashion? Although MCP is now starting to look at all those asynchronous kind of flows and how to make it as part of the protocol. I see a lot of engineering being done where, like I need to make an invocation to another agent in a reliable fashion where I don't lose track of it. People push a message in a queue.
Mm.
They create their own asynchronous systems essentially. With Temporal, our approach is, the same way we solve the whole durability problem for a single workflow execution, why can't we solve it across workflows?
There's a prevailing narrative that AI could vibe code your given favorite SaaS tool out there. And while it might not be true, nobody can prove it. So software stocks are essentially shot before, they're guilty before they're proven innocent, essentially. Given your experience, having been a software engineer for what, 30, 35 years now, I would love to get your take on, is software, obviously in the traditional sense, is software dead?
I have the opposite take. The value of software is shifting. So I think we are about to enter, there is a complete platform shift is happening. A lot more developers will be empowered to build software. The second, the cost of building a software is going to go down significantly, which means there's going to be a lot more software. So I think then in this world, where is the value? I think the value will definitely shift downstream. So this is where, like, for instance, let's pick an example, right? Maybe if you want to do Google Maps, maybe you can build your own Google Maps, but that's not the value is. The value is Google has data to bring those maps to life. So having an API for people to get access to those experience, I don't think that that value is going anywhere. It's going to get even more valuable. The consumption for Google Maps is going to go even higher now because more software is going to be written. So I think the value is definitely shifting. But I think it means more software, and I think which means there will tons and tons of opportunity for all of the software companies to figure out how in this shifting platform shift which is happening, how to capitalize on the value as it shifts from different parts of the system.
Well, it sounds like you're pretty bullish on the infrastructure layer, which is more data will be generated. So you still need a database. More multi-agent system will be created. So you still need orchestration. More API use cases will be generated. So API first companies will also be relatively safe from that point of view. What's your take on an application software company?
You need to be serving the needs of your customers, providing value to customers for the right price. That's what has always been the game. What AI enables is probably more competition threat for those application companies will be higher. But at the end of the day, as long as you are delivering business value to your end user at the right price, essentially, that's what everyone has always been judged on. And that thing is just going to get more intense in the future. But I think it's overall awesome thing for the industry, which means that amazing value that we return back to the industry or to the end user.
So this might be an unfair question. But let's say I'm an incumbent SaaS company CEO and I told my VP Eng to buy Temporal. What are the best practices that I should adopt to build agents?
Every SaaS company CEO needs to get ready for an explosion of applications. The cost of generating an application would go down so low. How they are investing into the infrastructure on bringing up those applications to life with all of the necessary guardrails that needs to, like, protecting their data, protecting identity, and all of those things needs to be the high level priority. So the place where temporal kicks in is clearly on reliability and scale perspective. In this new world, reliability bar is going to be even higher,
That's right.
essentially. The other key one is typically developer velocity. The whole premise of durable execution from day one has been built around, can we free up developers where they focus on the real meaningful part of their application so they can innovate faster and don't have to think about all sorts of failures or distributed systems problems. Essentially, we unlock a level of developer productivity already. And but in this whole new AI world, the entire developer productivity is going to be at a completely different level, essentially. So I think it's about innovating faster in this new world everyone is about to enter, and looking at temporal from a developer productivity lens is also pretty interesting way to look at the technology.
What would be your best advice for a new developer who is just graduating college or entering the workforce today?
For me, I think there would be a lot more focus on creativity and more product minded engineers. If you have an idea, if how can you solve creative business problems, that is going to be much more worthwhile skill set. That's the advice I typically give people, is lift themselves up, lift themselves as engineering systems in a very different way in how to create outcomes rather than, like, yes, building one specific thing.
Awesome, Summer. Thanks for being here.
Thanks a lot for having me. It was awesome discussion.